What's happening, everybody? It's time for another channel map. And this time, I brought my dog. Hope you guys like dogs around here because there's a lot of them, because Onatar has indeed received additional updates. In fact, the Antikythera engine in general is continuing at full steam ahead, full speed, you could say. Although the speed that we're at right now is nothing compared to what it'll be at the end of this month, and I'll get into that in a moment. But let's talk about what happened in January of 2022. You see, one of the biggest focuses of this past month was obviously, like I said earlier, Onatar and Antikythera. I needed to make sure that I had something reasonable and approaching playable and at least interesting and thought-provoking and promising so that I could give my brother a birthday present that it was actually made in our very own engine, which was obviously on the 30th of January, so towards the end of the month, we'll say. I don't know that we delivered, Veek and I, on making sure that it was playable, but it was at least entertaining for an hour or so, and obviously, it's something that I can continue updating and have since, and so we've checked it out a few times now, and there will be some fun had, right? So certainly some maps have been made, and we've been working on stuff most recently, earlier in the month of February, actually. Veek and I did a stream where we actually worked on a map live together, and that is pretty cool because that's something that we've all wanted in the RTS space for a very long time. I'm actually not sure of any other environment engine game that allows synchronous map editing. I'm sure it exists because it can't be something that is simultaneously an idea everybody has and everybody wishes for, but also like something that people just find too impossible to do. I don't believe we are the first ones to implement it, but it's still pretty cool. And even though some things are still rough around the edges as far as the UI goes, and it's still very much in development, and certainly feels and looks like it, it's obviously pretty exciting to actually have something to look at, something to do with another human being in the editor space. So obviously you can imagine what will fuel our map craps coming up soon is definitely going to be that. So stay tuned. The reason why I mentioned dogs earlier, besides the fact that my dog exists, is that we have Barkers as one of the units inside the Onatar factions. I'm not sure that they'll be called Barkers in the final cut, but I do really like Manolith, which is the central production facility for the Mankind faction. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, we can move on from talking about Onatar and Antikythera, at least as far as the last month is concerned, and we can talk about what else we were getting down to brass tacks with. So we were working on Folka's birthday map, and that released yesterday, the 2nd of February, 2022. So it's not technically something that released in January, but it was something that we worked on in January and also in December of last year. And so I'm really happy about that. A 2-month-long ordeal, almost, to get a Cosmonarchy Brood War patch out. That might be the last, I'll say it is the last sizable change, but it might actually be just the last patch that gets shipped, besides maybe some very minor fixes. So, yeah, end of an era, you could say, on the threshold of the new engine. So obviously at this point, we're just happy to have that. But if you're interested in the birthday map, this birthday map is a bit different than all the other birthday maps. This birthday map for Folka is basically the sort of test case and the proof of concept, the tech demo inside Brood War of a new game mode called Threshold, which is why I said earlier Threshold of the new engine. Haha. But Threshold as a game mode is basically this sort of survival thing where you have to hold out with waves and waves of AI spawning in. And that might sound a bit cheap to those who aren't understanding of how it works, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite competitive. Obviously, there are some core issues like the guard military limit, the AI military limit, and also the AI guard limit and stuff like that, that eventually cause the pre-placed units, the pre-placed ones that spawn in when the AI arrives, to not work correctly, not initialize. And there's many other smaller issues, and obviously then there's the instability and stuff. So it's not great in terms of like actually functioning, which is why it's a tech demo, because everything in Brood War can basically only be a tech demo. But you can probably start to see where I'm going with this, since I was just singing the praises of our engine. So just wait a little bit, and we'll have some really special stuff in there for people to play, RTS and MOBA and everything else in between probably, because that's just how versatile things are looking right now. Anyway, we can also talk a little bit about what happened in the Cosmonarchy Brood War patch. We added 3 new units, because 3, and also because I felt like they were valuable additions. And I also ended up removing the Southpaw because unfortunately it just didn't jive with any of the rest of the Terran arsenal. So if you're a Cosmonarchy Brood War aficionado, you can obviously check out the patch notes. I'll try to remember to link them in the description. And obviously you can talk about it on the Discord server if you got that level of access, you know what I'm saying? So there you go, that's it. My dog agrees. So, Divinity Original Sin 2 playthrough. That's obviously why my dog was snorting, because he knows that Dogvinity is up next as far as that goes. So, just got to remember that Divinity itself is a terrible game, but my brother and I are playing it, and we figured we might as well stream our antics, and some people are liking that. So that's going to continue until whenever we finish that game. I think we might actually be close to the end of it, but I'm not sure. And my dog is spinning, so give me a sec. All right, finally, the dog's out of the house, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, anyway, Dogvinity Original Sin 2, that'll continue. So, let's talk about the plans for February, because we've reminisced about January long enough, and we've sort of patted ourselves in the back, right? Veek and I have done a lot of work, did a bit of crunch for the Cousin's Birthday 2022. We also did, generally speaking, do a lot of work, both on Cosmonarchy Brood War, as a little bit of a send-off, and also on the new engine, on Onatar, all that good stuff. So prepare thyself for additional streams, because that's definitely going to be something that happens. And that obviously means we're going to be making some progress on Antikythera and Onatar. The current plan is that we want to bring back Fraud Knights, and we may also, in this month, port to Jonathan Blow's language, as I've received confirmation that we'll be receiving the next demo build that goes out, which is pretty exciting. So we'll see how that goes out, how that shapes up, what all happens with that. Not sure yet on how long the port will take or when we'll even start working on it, but presumably soon. So I don't know if that means this month or if that means some other time. But obviously, I'm very excited about not just at gaining access to that language, but also just finally being able to play multiplayer with people in some degree of stability. There are some issues with desyncs, but those are things that theoretically we can track down given enough time. We actually have access to the source code, so unlike in Brood War, we can do something about the desyncs, at least a lot quicker than we could with Brood War, which is why Brood War still doesn't function for Cosmonarchy Brood War anyway, in player versus player stuff. That will not be a concern here. On this channel here for video content, like I mentioned earlier, you can expect Antikythera streams, and you can expect, I don't know, maybe some other showcases, maybe bring back the cast overs, but in Cosmonarchy, or in Onatar, in Antikythera. That's going to be pretty cool. And then obviously there's going to be more of that Divinity playthrough, like I mentioned. I will be resuming more conventional playthroughs this month. I will be starting with Braid, and depending on how long that takes, I will be moving on to the Witness afterwards. And I think the plan is indeed to continue on with the sort of puzzler style and go into the Talos principle. But we shall see what happens with that. It really depends on what my mood is after playing those two games. And obviously, once I'm done with those first two games from Jonathan Blow, I can actually get him back on for another interview. So that'll be exciting. And I'm sure I'll have plenty of questions for him about that stuff. So I guess you might be able to look into the future and expect that maybe in the month of March or something. I will probably also do some crazy custom campaign playthroughs if and when I feel like it. I did mention this last month on the last channel map, and I also actually did attempt to do Empire Wars, but it was so bad that I decided not to subject you guys to it. And that's that's saying something, you know? So I must have played for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it got very dumb very quickly. So I said no. And you're welcome for me saying no, but maybe there will be something that's not quite so terrible that I can experience. Or if it is terrible, it's terrible in ways that are a little bit more reasonable to stomach, and, you know, it's like flame knives or something. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, aside from that, we do have some other channel plans. I did mention that the No Frauds Club channel will receive some new content, and not just Jonathan Blow interviews, but also interviews with other people. I have to start reaching out to those people again. And most of the time, I haven't reached out to too many people at all. But when I did so, it was like basically over the holidays. So I'm just going to nudge some people again and nudge some people for the first time, see who wants to come in. Just haven't gotten around to that because I was busy doing birthday catch-up stuff, but now I can certainly focus a little bit more on not doing birthday catch-up stuff because the next birthday is a month and a little bit extra away, so I don't have to worry about that. Besides that, yeah, you can actually expect the videos on the Frauds Club standards and stuff. As mentioned before, the birthday brigade nonsense that I was dealing with definitely took up a lot of my time, and besides, I was too busy focusing on actually making content, at least making in-game Antikythera content to bother making video content, but that is no longer true now. I can actually make some videos, so I guess you can expect those sometime soon. And then in the more distant future, I've been talking about the campaign video and the mapping guide part 3. Those are still planned. The send-off for educational Brood War content is basically going to be what mapping guide part 3 is. So I'm still debating on whether or not I want to use the older recordings that I was working on, where I did build a scenario from scratch, and then, I basically did all the layout and stuff. So maybe I could do that and then just leave it at that. I'm not sure, but I guess we'll see. I'll revisit that footage later on when I have less on my plate. And that's it. That's the channel map for the month of February 2022. I do have some pretty big plans. Vik and I have been working pretty steadily every day, hours and hours every day, on various things related to Onatar and Antikythera, and obviously more recently on Cosmonic Brood War, but that's going to be quieting very shortly. Already has. I haven't even thought about it. Too busy working on Antikythera stuff. So you can stay tuned to our Discord server and the YouTube channel and all that stuff for more updates. And if you got questions, post them below. I will bring them back and answer some of them or whatever. And I will also be looking forward to bringing back Fraud Knights. So stay tuned for that. And don't die.